Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We again will be creating two well-known broadcasts from the golden age of radio. We will start with the master of British mysteries, Sherlock Holmes. Now, I think most of us can remember the address that Sherlock lived in London, which was 221B Baker Street. And we know that his assistant was Dr. Watson. Does anyone know Dr. Watson's first name? John, excellent. And also, Sherlock sometimes needed to consult his older brother in order to be able to solve his cases, and he was Mycroft. Excellent, we've got a lot of Sherlock Holmes fans here tonight. Now, let me tell you a few things maybe you didn't know about the Sherlock Holmes radio program. It first began in October 20th, 1930. And while Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce were the most famous actors to portray the parts, there were actually 5 different Sherlocks before Mr. Rathbone, and there were 4 after him, including actor Tom Conway and also Sir John Gielgud. And there was also an obscure actor by the name of Orson Welles who would occasionally play the role of Dr. Moriarty. So now, since we have just celebrated the holiday when we all become Irish for 24 hours, we will bring you the March 18th, 1946 Sherlock Holmes program entitled The Adventure of the Blarney Stone. We're on the air.
The makers of Petri wine bring you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petri family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us another story about his old friend, that master detective, Sherlock Holmes. And incidentally, I'd like to tell you about a swell American custom. The custom of serving sherry wine just before dinner. Petri, California sherry. You know, especially when you have guests, while awaiting that call to the dinner table, there's nothing better than a good glass of good Petri sherry. You don't need fancy glasses for Petri sherry. No, sir. That wine tastes great out of any glass, and it looks good too. Beautifully clear and the color of precious amber. Just try that Petri sherry, and you'll feel like smacking your lips after every sip. And, oh say, Petri makes 2 kinds of sherry, the regular sherry and Petri pale dry sherry, just to make sure you get the perfect sherry for the whole family. Don't buy 1, buy 2, but do be sure the sherry you buy is Petri sherry. Petri, the proudest name in the history of American wine. Now I'm sure Dr. Watson is ready for us. Let's go in and join him.
I'm coming. Ah, there you are, Mr. Bartell.
Good evening, Doctor. Say, where are the puppies this evening?
Mr. Bartell, don't you think it's about time you began to refer to them as dogs? They're almost a year old, you know.
I stand corrected. Where are the dogs this evening?
Well, they had another furious battle with a seal on the beach today. My housekeeper, Mrs. West, is giving them a much-needed bath.
They certainly have an aversion to seals, don't they? Well, Doctor, are you all ready with tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure?
Yes, my boy, and as yesterday was St. Patrick's Day, I decided to tell you a story that took place in Ireland a few years before the turn of the century. I imagine that you've heard of kissing the Blarney Stone, haven't you?
Oh, yes, Doctor, though I've never understood exactly what it meant.
Well, let me explain it to you, because the ceremony plays a very important part in the story tonight. Blarney Castle is an imposing 15th century ruin a few miles outside the town of Cork. The castle is many stories high, and in the foremost tower, the famous Blarney Stone is situated.
Well, what's supposed to be the point in kissing it, Doctor?
The stone is considered to be a powerful talisman, and the legend runs that whoever kisses it is endowed with eloquence for life.
Say, Doctor, if I ever get over to Ireland, I'll certainly kiss that stone. But you're such a storyteller yourself, Doctor. I'll bet you've kissed it,
No, Mr. Bartell, I'm afraid I've never had quite enough courage.
Courage? Well, why does it need courage, Doctor?
Because the Blarney stone is set in a most inaccessible position on the outside wall. To kiss it, it is customary to lower the candidate for eloquence over the rampart, head first, with a friend hanging onto his heels.
From the top of a castle? That does sound dangerous, Doctor.
It was, my boy. So much so that in recent years, a great row of iron spikes was put around the parapet to prevent an accident. Of course, at the time tonight's story took place, there was no such guard.
And I have a feeling an accident did take place?
Now, Mr. Bartell. Let me tell you the story from the beginning. Sherlock Holmes and I were staying in the city of Cork, where the great man had just solved the singular affair which the local press had referred to as the Capricorn murders. A few days before our departure for England, we paid a visit to the Blarney Castle. I must confess that I had a certain desire to test the mystical powers attributed to the Blarney stone. I very soon changed my mind, however, as Holmes and I stood there high on the turrets of Blarney Castle and watched the terrified initiate being hauled up by his ankles and yelling at the top of his voice,
Pull me up! Pull me up quickly! I think I'm going to faint.
"Great Scott! I had no idea that kissing the Blarney stone was such a hazardous proceeding, Holmes."
Yes, it would seem that eloquence could be more easily obtained than by hanging suspended by one's ankles from a battlement with a 100-foot drop below and kissing a piece of stone.
Boy, I'll never do that again. Never, never!
I must say I don't blame that fellow.
And yet, my dear chap, on our way over here, you expressed a sneaking desire to kiss the stone yourself. I'd be very happy to hold your ankles if you want to try the experiment.
No, thank you. After witnessing the ceremony, I've changed my mind.
Then I suggest we make our way back down the stairs. I don't think there's much more to be seen up here.
By the way, Holmes, do you know the origin of the superstition regarding the Blarney stone?
Yes, I do, old chap.